Hello and welcome to the Rest is Football. We've pressed the emergency pod button because there's been some breaking news this morning that Wayne Rooney has lost his job as Birmingham City coach. And after a really tough period, he was appointed on the 11th of October last year, only in charge for 15 games, just the 2 wins in that time and 9 defeats, scored 15 goals, 30 goals conceded. No championship team has picked up fewer points than Birmingham since Rooney took over as manager. They were 6th when he was given the job. They're now 20th, just 6 points off the relegation zone. It's been a tough time. I've got Micah Richards with me as well. We like to react to breaking news stories. We prefer them when they're good news, I have to say. But I think we all know and like Wayne Rooney. He was an unbelievable footballer. Prior to this, he'd done I think a reasonable job with Derby County under the most trying of circumstances. And as Washington's DC manager, they actually asked him back. But he's found it very difficult at Birmingham. It just shows you really, doesn't it, that doesn't matter how great you were as a footballer, it doesn't make coaching any easier, Micah.
Yeah, well, it was brought in for the sort of Hollywood signing, as it were. We've seen what's been happening at Wrexham, and for them, it's worked. You know, they've done a brilliant job down there. Rooney, it was always going to be a little bit more difficult, in my opinion, because John Eustace was doing such a good job there. Like you said, there were 6 when Rooney was appointed, and it was almost like, can he adapt his way of playing to survive in the championship with the players he had? We know what Rooney wants to do. He wants to play out from the back. He wants to be expansive at every moment. He wants his keepers to get involved in play also. But unfortunately, the players that he had couldn't buy into what he was trying to do. And if you win 2 games in 15, the writing's always going to be on the wall. And I'm gutted for him because I've listened to a lot of his ideas. He really wants to play attacking way and good football, easy on the eye. But it's not always the way when you're at a team who are expected, you know, to work hard, give 100%, be not pragmatic, but be defensive and then go forward with quality at the right times. And to change all that within, a couple of months, it was always going to be difficult, I thought.
If you've got principles of playing and you want to have a way of playing, it's probably made it a little bit more difficult for him, the fact that he came in a couple of months after the start of the season. Perhaps when you come in and you want to play in that manner of building from the back, perhaps the players hadn't been accustomed to it previously. It would be easier, wouldn't it, if you got a pre-season to kind of convince the players of your ideas. At least you've got a month then to work with them. Whereas if you come in 2 months, 3 months into the start of the season, and the players have been playing and trying to change it, and you know how many games you play in the Championship. I mean, there are so many that you don't really have a week, 2 weeks on the training field to put in your kind of ethos and your plans and your style of football. I'm not making excuses for him. The results speak for themselves. But perhaps under those circumstances, you have to think of playing in a different way. But then you give up on what you believe, and he's probably been fighting himself in his own mind as to how to get the best out of his team under those circumstances. So I do have, a lot of sympathy for Wayne Rooney. I mean, I really like him as a guy. I've met him numerous times. He was obviously an unbelievable footballer. He loves the game. I mean, I saw him a couple of years ago. We were out with Rio and one or two others, and you could tell he was loving coaching. And I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to get back in, because it does seem to me that it seems to be very addictive to those once they get in that role. And I hope he gets another chance, because 3 months in football is not much to change things at a football club, but you understand why patience will wear thin, especially when you start dipping towards the bottom of the table.
Yeah, points well made, but I think, just picking up on one of your points, I think the best managers know how to adapt at the right times. So if you've got a team who can be solid and nick you a goal and just sort of get your way through, we're talking about a transfer window. So a lot of people are saying, okay, January, well, he's not brought in his own players. Is it really fair to judge him when he's... But to be honest, the team was doing so well, there's no really excuse. Yes, the style of play. And you made a really good point about the championship. I played in the championship and it's Saturday, Tuesday. In between them days, you just rested anyway. So to try and get your style of play within the season is going to be very, very difficult. So yes, I think he's got a chance of being still a very good manager, because let's have it right. At Derby, he did a good job. What they was dealing with, financials and losing the players,
point
and the
stocks,
transfer embargoes, so many different things. And he nearly kept them up. I think it was 21 points in the end, which they got deducted. Any manager would find that difficult. He had something, and that's why a lot of people were looking at him. A lot of people were saying, well, he should have never had the chance to work for Birmingham. But he should, because he did a really good job at Derby. It's just this Birmingham one, because of where they were in the league, I think, and to be 20th in the league now, it's not gone like we all planned, and we have to be honest about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's if you look at the generational talents of the last 20 years or so, you've got Rooney, Gerrard, Lampard, the obvious three. I actually admire them for going into management, because they're obviously in a situation where they probably don't need to. But you can see they've got a real passion and a love for the game. For Gerrard, it started very well, of course, at Rangers, and he ended that massive run of victories that Celtic had for a long time. And I think we all thought he had something, and then he went to Villa and it started reasonably well, and then probably the first real bad run, they fired him. But then you look at Unai Emery's come in, and more experienced man, and he's had incredible results with primarily the same players. I think Gerrard had a bit of bad luck with one or two injuries. Frank Lampard, he went down the Derby route, did okay there, and then obviously Chelsea came along, and then he went back, and all three of them have found it very difficult. So it just really shows you, just because you're a wonderfully gifted and talented and hard-working footballer, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a top coach. One of the three may well be in time. We don't know. Currently, Steven Gerrard's in a bad run as well, isn't he, in Saudi Arabia? But I do admire them for giving it a go. But they're in now, and I think Frank Lampard's keen to get back in. And I suppose the way to get back in when you've not had the best of starts as a manager is to take a smaller club or a club outside the top flight, but then you're dealing with players that are nowhere near as good as you were. And it was the conversation we had, didn't we, with Alan, how frustrating it is dealing with players that are probably not as good as you. But he said it was more dealing with players that hadn't got the attitude that you had. I'm not saying that Birmingham's players hadn't got the right attitude, but management's tough. It's a different skill set. You can't just assume because you've been a great player that you know about man management, about getting the best out of this player one way and getting the best out of another player in a different way. But they clearly love it, and I hope he gets another go and gets back into it.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that you said, but I just think with Gerrard, a lot of people are talking about Gerrard and they're only looking at his time at Aston Villa, which obviously was a big challenge for him at the time. But at Rangers, he won the league. So he did go there, went to a big club, and he dealt with the pressure then. And people were talking about, well, it's only 2 teams in the league. You still got to do it. So he earned the right to get a chance. We're talking about Frank Lampard when he went to Chelsea. Don't forget, he had that time where they couldn't sign players. He brought through all the young players and they got into the Champions League. So people will talk about these players, but, we have to talk about the full story. And then the problems that Rooney occurred when he was at Derby and did really, really well. It's just from them moments, they've not kicked on. That is an honest assessment of it. And we talked about it last time on the pod. It comes with more pressure. And like Alan said, it can be the attitude. If you're a world-class player and you find something really easy to do and somebody who you're trying to coach can't do that, it can be frustrating. And we talk about plans and being able to implement that plan. It is very difficult when you've got a player who's such a high level. And it's the same with like Vieira. So Vieira was at Man City and he was a player and became the 21s. And we used to talk about tactics and different strategies and stuff. And he used to get frustrated when he was trying to pass on a message and they couldn't do some of the basic things. So I totally understand it as well.
Yeah. I wonder what would have happened if someone like Pep Guardiola, for example, had... Because he started at, I think it was Barcelona B, wasn't he? And obviously they're brought up in a certain way from La Masia, the way the players play there. They play that total football game. So it would have been natural for him to come in there, and then he did well. And then he went straight into Barcelona's team. It's been a phenomenal success ever since. But someone like that, he's never had, I suppose, in many ways, to work with players of inferior abilities. So I wonder whether that happened, or the fact that he's you can see he's improved players right throughout wherever he's been. What do you think? I mean, it's hypothetical. We'll never know. But
He's a genius, isn't he? And I think the reason why I think he would succeed anywhere is because, like you said, he improves players, but he also creates different positions for players as well. So we're talking about fullbacks coming and playing inside. We've seen fullbacks do all sorts of wonderful things, but Pep was the one who really created that, especially in the Premier League, and people are following suit now. You see Liverpool do it. You see Spurs doing it with Porro and Udogie as well. And I'm not saying he's copied, but he was brave enough to try that. He won a league without a recognised striker, just sort of playing a false number 9. But yes, all these are quality players and they can take on information at the highest level. But I do believe if he was to start blank canvas and put his sort of philosophy on a team, even in a championship, I still believe they would do well. And I say that because Arteta's worked with him. Your Leicester boy manager has worked with him.
I was just going to mention Maresca, but he's playing very much kind of Pep style football, very kind of possession based. He's inverted fullbacks, all the kind of stuff that we've seen Pep play you say in a championship side though, but Leicester, I think they've got Premier League players, a lot of them in that squad that Leicester have got. I mean, yes, they lost some of their best players, Maddison, Harvey Barnes, Castagna, during the summer, but they also kept a lot of very good players, and obviously they're comfortably 10-point lead now at the top of the championship, but they're playing that way. But he's got players that are capable of playing that particular style of football. I wonder if you haven't got those players that can cope with that style of football, I suppose what you've got to appoint the right manager to fit the players that you've got as well. And that's an important point. Whether it was, Brady was influential in the decision of Wayne Rooney or not, I don't know. But perhaps, and also Wayne Rooney perhaps should have looked at it a bit more and go, are these players going to fit with this style. But then they might have said, well, just, hang on and we'll get you 3 or 4 new players in the window or something. But
yeah, but every manager has the arrogance, don't they? I remember managers coming into the dressing room saying, I'll make you a better player, or I'll make this team better. They have that self-belief. You might not call arrogance, self-belief that they can make them better. So, yeah, I think if you're a good manager, you always believe no matter what you have, you can improve them. And he's probably thinking, okay, the 6 in the league, we'll do what we can, implement the style of play what we can until January. We'll get the players that we really want to enhance that, and then we'll move forward. But he's not made it till January. He's made it till January, but he's not made it to the transfer window, which is pretty sad, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. It's always a tough day when any manager loses their job, let alone one of England's absolute greats. But that's the way of football and football management. It's a brutal business. And on that note, we'll wish Wayne Rooney well in whatever he does next and say goodbye.
And goodbye.